Hey everybody, Arnaldo here, broadcasting from Fidelio's Frequency. Welcome to my channel. 2023 is coming to an end, and as usual, many publications, several members of the vinyl community have started already publishing videos of their favorite albums of 2023. And like I did last year, I'd like to present my selection of the albums that I listened to the most or my favorite ones from the year. I'll try and probably make two different videos, and I think this is going to be the first one because there's probably too many to put in one video. So there's going to be the top 10, and then there is this video, which is, I'd like to call it the best of the rest. Albums that I listened to, albums that I already talked about on my channel, and maybe a few that I didn't have a chance to talk about. So I'd like to highlight them. So starting off with one of the first albums that I hadn't had a chance to talk about is the new album by Sigur Ros, or Sigur Ros, Icelandic band. This is their 8th album, I believe, and it's been a while since we heard from Sigur Ros. I think 2013 was their last album, a very dark album, and one of the key things of this album is that the original keyboard player, I believe his name is Kjartan, rejoined the band for this album, and still led by Jonesy, main songwriter and vocalist of the band. And an album quite different from their usual. I'd almost call it, in certain elements, it's almost a classical album, classical music, orchestra, and very minimal percussion, minimal drums throughout the entire album. So it's a very quiet album for sure. And the music, I want to say, is sparse, floaty, nonetheless beautiful. And actually, it kind of reminds me, even though I've never been, but at least from the videos that I've seen of the landscapes of Iceland, that's what kind of reminds me. Can we call it cinematic? Maybe, but just to get an idea from the inside of the cover, very peaceful, beautiful landscapes in Iceland, and beautiful sonic landscapes on this album. The artwork, it was a bit controversial when it came out in even the late summer because of the rainbow flag being on fire. No, it's not an anti-gay. I believe a few of the members, or at least Jonesy, is part of the LGBT community. So it was more like sending a message about climate change and almost doomsday approaching, with the flag on fire and totally burnt on the back. So that's my first selection, one of the albums, best of the rest of 2023. Oh, it's called Ata by Sigur Ros. And moving on to another release that I didn't get a chance to highlight in my, let's call them new release roundups or recaps that I've been trying to do quarterly on my channel. I had them all queued up for the next video of Q3, but I never got around to making it because other videos took priority, and also because of time constraints. So I'll talk about them now. So just like Sigur Ros, I'd like to talk about another album that I listened to quite a bit this year, and it is the album Eat the Worm by Jonathan Wilson. It's his 4th solo album. Many probably don't know Jonathan Wilson per se as an artist, but for sure have listened to music that he has produced, or maybe have seen him live on the latest 2 Roger Waters tours. He plays guitar, he also sings, usually the parts sung by Dave Gilmour, and does a great job at it. I believe he's also actually the music director of Roger Waters' show. But Jonathan Wilson, Eat the Worm, his 4th solo album, like I just said, is a very pleasant surprise. His previous album, Dixie Blur, already surprised me. I was unfamiliar with his work up until his 3rd studio album, and this one doesn't disappoint as well. Another reason why you may know Jonathan Wilson is because of his career as a producer. Many artists he's produced. Two of my favorite albums from last year, actually, he produced and recorded. The Father John Misty. He's produced all of Father John Misty's albums and the Angel Olsen album, which was my favorite album of last year. But this album, let's talk a little bit about it. I want to say it's a glorious pop album, not in your typical top 40 pop, more in the vein of the way Brian Wilson, Van Dyke Parks, to an extent Todd Rundgren, and maybe even Harry Nilsson interpreted pop. So it is a very luscious album, sumptuous, I would almost say. It's very multi-layered. I want to call it Laurel Canyon meets psychedelia. So I hope that gives you the impression of what it sounds like. His songwriting style. There's a lot of twists and turns in his songs, whether in style, tempo, and even melody. Jonathan Wilson always surprises us when you're listening to one of his songs. They're almost like maybe mini symphonies for how complex the songwriting is. Nonetheless, I think still very accessible. Some of my favorite songs on here, Marzipan is the album opener. The beautiful, probably the best track on the album, my favorite track, is Charlie Parker, a tribute to Charlie Parker. And then The Village is Dead is another song that I would like to highlight from this album. So definitely give Jonathan Wilson a try. Maybe one of the things that makes his music a little bit less accessible is his voice. Let's just not say he belts out. His voice is very, I want to say maybe a little subdued, sometimes whispered, but maybe for some an acquired taste, but definitely very fascinating. Jonathan Wilson, Eat the Worm. The next album, I actually, initially when it came out, I streamed it and I wasn't very impressed. I don't want to say I wasn't very impressed. I was like, okay, maybe I need to give it another listen. It didn't grab me at first. A few months ago, I saw it in marked down at a record store, and I was like, you know what? Let me grab this because I like her and all, as a songwriter and as a performer. Loved her work in her previous, her first band, Rilo Kiley, and I'm talking about Jenny Lewis and her new album called Joy Y'all. And what a surprise. I put this album on listening to the physical copy, and it was a totally different experience than streaming it. So goes to show that sometimes streaming doesn't always deliver or do justice to the music. Could have been the setting that I was listening to the album, probably in my earbuds, but listening to it at home from vinyl made a whole different experience for me. This is her 5th solo album. And as I mentioned before on the previous release, there was a little bit on Jonathan Wilson, the Laurel Canyon feel. This one also, but in this case, Laurel Canyon, I want to say, meets Nashville. Definitely. Not a country album per se, but for sure, very influenced, probably by the studio that she recorded the album at. Dave Cobb, the producer, actually booked sessions in Nashville at the famous Studio A, and you could totally hear it on this album. Beautifully recorded. Jenny Lewis is a fantastic storyteller and delivers amazing one-liners. Definitely worth a listen. And Joy Y'all, an album that I think you'll appreciate more on vinyl rather than streaming it. And from the joyous Jenny Lewis, very upbeat music, let's move on to something that's a bit more somber. I'd say maybe solemn, and that is a new album by Paul Simon called 7 Psalms. Inspired, he said that it came to him in a dream. Inspired, obviously, by the Book of Psalms. Paul Simon was waking up in the middle of the night for about a few days in a row and started writing the lyrics for this album. And the album kind of reminds me in terms of mood to the final album by David Bowie, Black Star, or that one of Leonard Cohen, You Want It Darker. And also, in terms of how the songs are structured, like the song structure of the songs, even though there is a more traditional type of, let's call it, pop style of songwriting, it does remind me of an album by an artist named David Sylvian, and that album is Blemish. Not as accessible as this one, but maybe similar. An album that is focused mostly on acoustic guitar, and we are reminded here what an underrated and fantastic guitar player Paul Simon is, in addition to being known and being highly rated as a songwriter, crafter of melodies, and fantastic storyteller. The album was intended to be listened to all in one setting, so maybe the vinyl with the flipping over interruption between side A and side B can take away a little bit to the enjoyment of this album. Maybe you want to go for the CD or the streaming version. I personally did not like the streaming version of the album. This album definitely, it's not something you cherry pick the songs on, but you want to listen to all in one setting. And yeah, that's all I can say about Paul Simon and Seven Psalms. So from a short album, the Paul Simon Seven Psalms, which I believe clocks in a little bit over a half hour, to something that is almost 3 hours long, and that is the new album by, weighs a ton, the Smashing Pumpkins, called Autumn. 3-album set. It's a rock opera. I've spoken about this one on my channel before. Maybe you can flip back to the older videos where I go a little bit more in detail about it. It is, I lost track what album this is by the Smashing Pumpkins. All original members except for Darcy. That's been the case for the last 3 or 4 albums by the Smashing Pumpkins. Billy Corgan kind of like closes the story about Zero, which he started in previous albums. It's a fictional character. And it's a rock opera, like I said. It sounds like a rock opera. Sounds like something that's ready to be staged. Sometimes space rock. Sometimes it reminds me of, for some songs, it does remind me of Adore, synth heavy. Sometimes a little poppier, sometimes a little more rock. But the album was released over the course of, the first 2 parts were released over the course of the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, with the final installment and the physical copy of the physical formats of Autumn coming out in March of 2023. So if you have a lot of time, and it's definitely enjoyable, I play this album from the beginning to end, and I never got, for one moment, thought, okay, maybe this is a little too long. Maybe the last side, which is the audio story, and it's basically a story told over like an orchestral portion. You can avoid that one, but nonetheless, enjoyable album by the Smashing Pumpkins, Autumn. And now for something definitely upbeat, happy, cheery, fun. I want to call this album just plain fun, and it's a new album, or the album that was released in 2023 by the Gorillaz, Cracker Island. This was a great surprise. Damon Albarn, everyone knows, former member of, yes, also current member of Blur, but maybe we'll talk about Blur again in my next video, the top 10 video. So that's a little hint for you all there. Album, which is just pure fun. A lot of collaborations. We have Thundercat on the opening track, Cracker Island, one of my favorite tracks. Oil, another track of my favorites, is sung by Stevie Nicks. Then we have the opening track of side B, New Gold, Tame Impala, and it sounds just like a Tame Impala track. And the closer of the album, another one of my favorites, is the track with Beck called Possession Island. Weird one is the one with Bad Bunny, which has more of like almost a reggaeton Latin feel, but definitely a great album to listen to whenever you're in the mood to just have fun. So Gorillaz, Cracker Island. 2023 saw the return, new release by artist that was very dear to me. I've been following her career since her probably second album, and I'm talking about Ricky Lee Jones. Pieces of Treasure is the name of the album. It is a jazz standards album. This is Ricky Lee Jones' full jazz album. Yes, throughout her career, she has interpreted other jazz songs here and there on other albums where she's featured a cover now and then. But this one is all about jazz songs or reinterpreted in a jazz standard or jazz arrangement, and produced by Russ Titleman, who produced her first two albums. So we see her reunited with her longtime friend and collaborator. And there's a picture that was taken actually from I believe it came from the sessions of her first album cover. So she pulls that one out from the archives, and it's a fantastic cover, I think, too, along with the covers on the album. Some of the covers on the album that I love are her interpretation of Nature Boy, almost kind of like maybe it has like a slight Middle Eastern influence in it. Then September Song by Kurt Weill, They Can't Take That Away From Me, One for My Baby, and the closer of the album is It's All in the Game, which has a very personal and sentimental meaning for Ricky Lee Jones, who actually learned to appreciate jazz through her father, and she started singing some of these songs as a little girl with her father. Lovely jazz album, wonderful album to listen to, of standards and unique interpretations and voice by Ricky Lee Jones. So I guess this is the year of cover albums, cover version albums. First we had Ricky Lee Jones with her jazz covers, and now we have one of my favorites, all-time favorite songwriters, performer, artist, and that is Rufus Wainwright with his folk song covers album called Folkography, a double album set. And it sounds like the mood of this album is Rufus Wainwright having a party at his house, singing songs with his friends. Very well, amazing production by Mitchell Froom, and tons of guests on here. My favorite song, there's two songs for me stand out, is 12:30 Young Girls Are Coming to the Canyon. That is a Mamas and Papas song. Here it's sung with Susanna Hoffs, Chris Stills, son of Stephen Stills, and Sheryl Crow. So two boys, two girls. Beautiful harmonies. Love the arrangement of that. Then my next favorite, and total surprise for me. I was totally unexpected when I read the track listing. I was like, why is he doing Cotton Eye Joe? And with Chaka Khan featured as a duet on this album, fantastic song, fantastic reinterpretation of Cotton Eye Joe with Chaka Khan. He also includes, and he was a bit reluctant, but I'm glad he did do it, Going to a Town, which is one of my favorite tracks of Rufus Wainwright. It is the only track that he wrote on this, and it's a reinterpretation, a folkier reinterpretation of a song that he did on the album, I believe, Release the Stars. And he does it here with Anoni, and great vocal pairing between the two. And there's so many other great songs on here, and the notable cover of Harvest with Andrew Bird again and Chris Stills. So I'm sure these are well-known folk songs for most. I didn't know a lot of them. I'm glad I got to know them through the voice of Rufus and his friends singing on Folkography, Rufus Wainwright. An album that was featured on one of my new release roundup videos, and I won't talk too much about this one because I've spoken about it before. You can check out that video. Is the new album by Cat Stevens, also known as Yusuf, since his let's call it spiritual awakening or conversion. King of a Land, beautiful packaging, this soft touch feel with all of this embossed lettering and image, beautiful booklet inside. all with this childlike, almost like a child's storybook. And that's what the music sounds like. It's very, I don't want to say childlike, but it has this innocence of children's songs. Obviously, main inspiration is always very spiritual for Cat Stevens. Produced, recorded beautifully, and go check out my video to know more about it. But I just wanted to highlight it because I have been listening to this. Didn't make my top 10, but worthy of inclusion in this video. Cat Stevens, King of a Land. It took them more than 20 years to release a studio album of new original material, but what a joy it was in 2023 to get new music from the Rolling Stones. I have talked at length about this album in another video, so maybe check that one out. But briefly, some of them already are 80 years old. It is already a huge achievement to write, record music this good at that age, so far ahead in your career. So if you haven't listened to this, please give it a shot. I think it's the album this year that came out with the most variants. I'm sure there's a record about it. I don't know, I think they've done maybe 40, 50 variants in terms of covers or colors. This is the Paul Smith variant. Some of the songs, I've already said this, my favorite song on here is, of course, Sweet Sounds of Heaven, featuring Lady Gaga, reminiscent of their sound from the 70s. A little bit Sticky Fingers on that one. Stevie Wonder's also on that track, playing, I think, keyboards or organ. Paul McCartney plays on Bite My Head Off. Bill Wyman, original founding member and bass player of the Stones, retired, comes out of retirement and plays on a few songs. And we still have a few tracks with Charlie Watts, who passed away a few years ago. So if you haven't listened to this album, go ahead and give it a try. That kind of wraps it up for the first video of 2023 recap of the year. Yes, this was best of the rest, so stay tuned for the next one, where I will be featuring my 10 favorite albums, plus a little surprise. I also wanted to remind you, I posted a video earlier, a few days ago, about the giveaway that I'm doing on my channel to celebrate the 1,000 subscribers. Check out that video. You could win a signed art print of Johnny Marr, by Johnny Marr, and his latest studio album. Check out that video and put in your entries for that. I also wanted to thank all the people, once again, that have subscribed to my channel. If you have not subscribed yet, please hit that subscription button, click like or dislike. Love to hear your thoughts on these albums. Please leave a comment. And thank you very much for watching this video. I will see you on the next one, which is the top 10 of 2023. So until then, thanks again for watching. Bye.